We all know that astrology is powerful, but it's really what you do after you hear a horoscope or receive a reading that brings out the full potential of astrology. So you can learn that you have a certain placement, or you're going through a Saturn return, or there's a dasha coming up, or a transit. But what do you do with it? How do you actually integrate it into your life? Today, I'm sharing a very cool interview I did with Eleri Ward, an amazing musician from New York City who has influences of astrology in her work. And at the end of this episode, I'll share one of her music videos for those of you watching the video, or you can listen along. But she actually integrates these themes of astrology into what she shares in her art, which is very dear to me because, as many of you know, I came into my adulthood as a musician, and that was kind of my main path for a while. And that led me into more and more learning about energy and frequency and things like astrology, going deeper and deeper to lead me where I am now. So music is a big part of my background, and I love hearing other creative, artistic people share their inspiration from astrology. And even if you're not a creative or an artist, I think you'll get a lot out of this interview of like how to tap into your intuition and actually apply the wisdom and potential of your birth chart to your life, which is exactly what we're starting to do on March 20th. So you can join the waitlist now at quietmindastrology.com/new moon. And I'll be opening enrollment on the 20th for new moon alignment. This is a way to work with the energy of each new moon cycle actually in your life with practices, with exercises, just like we're talking about today. So that's at quietmindastrology.com/new moon. And if you want to check out Eleri's music after this episode, just look up Eleri Ward on Spotify and all the platforms and YouTube. She's there. She's got amazingly artistic and creative vision in her art and her videos and her music. So I definitely recommend checking them out. But now we're going to go into the interview, and then at the end, we'll have her music video as well. So enjoy. I'm very grateful to be joined today by Eleri Ward. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So Ellery's an amazing musician. You can check her out on Spotify right now if you want before we go into this conversation or afterwards. But you'll hear some of the astrology influence in Ellery's music and her astrology background. So I'd just love to start there. Just how does this kind of come together for you of like getting interested into astrology and then coming into your music and how that kind of inspires you in some way?
Yeah, I think when it comes to just natural inspiration and as artists, what we draw from is our day-to-day life. And funnily enough, astrology has kind of always been a part of my day-to-day life. It's been interwoven into a lot of my decision making and my framing and how I sort of look at the environment of my life during certain periods of time. And so, weirdly enough, astrology has kind of maybe been in the background of my life throughout time, even when I haven't consciously been aware of it. I've grown more and more consciously aware of it as I've gotten older and more introspective and reflective. It's been a really wonderful and enriching resource for my own inner world and deeper understanding. So that's really how I have kind of grown a deeper relationship with astrology, is by growing a deeper relationship with myself. And naturally, I write very introspectively, so it kind of just has blended together, kind of forming a foundation in which my ideas come from. So I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I actually have a music background as well. And
Cool.
I part of the reason I'm here and so into astrology this far is because of hearing some of those astrology influences in the musicians I looked up to. And
Mm.
it was like, oh, there must be something to this if everyone's talking about like Saturn returns and
Yeah.
retrograde. And so like I think there's some natural connection there with music and astrology and intuition and spirituality. And I imagine this is part of a big part of your life of like not just the astrology, but like the intuitive, spiritual, energetic kind of things. Because that's like a lot of what music is, right?
Definitely. And I think music has been the vessel for that for me. Music has been this kind of container for my own introspection and for my own self exploration in a way that has felt far more expansive, and perhaps satisfying than just journaling in my journal, or just like reading a book and then contemplating about it for however long. I feel like actually funneling those experiences and musings into something more tangible, yet something so personalized, like it's my own creation. But it's far more real. It's something that I can come back to. It's a little bit more materialized, than just sitting in thought or meditation. It kind of becomes this concrete moment in time amidst all of those more abstract environments and abstract times. And I think that's what I really love about writing, is it kind of just like if we're talking the emotional waters that are very fluid and kind of elusive at times, I feel like a song coming out of the water is just kind of like, okay, actually I'm giving myself a little bit of an anchor of where I was in these specific waters. And then it's a really cool thing to look back on and return to, and it's like solid, but still it's in the water at the same time.
Yes, totally. And I found in my experience with writing is like sometimes I figure out how I feel or what I think about something through the writing process. And it's
Totally.
because it's like not quite this, it's not quite that, not quite this sound, not quite, and then you kind of figure out like where it is. And
Yeah,
I imagine it's been like that. It's kind of a discovery process also.
definitely. Yeah. And it's also cool because there are times where I don't know what the song does really want to say or what it's supposed to be until I'm in the thick of it, really kind of combing through it in the moment. Sometimes it's like, okay, I know this has to be a song and all I have to do is write it. But other times it's not as straightforward and clear, but that's really beautiful too.
Right. And yeah, for anyone listening who's not in any sort of like musical, like I think it's a great, at least play to like just try to create something, even if you don't feel like you're creative. And
Mhm.
I wonder if there's anyone listening, maybe you could speak to who's like inspired in some way, maybe by your music or wanting to create or wanting to express themselves, but feeling like, well, I'm not musical or I'm not talented or like, I don't know. Did you ever have that when you were writing early on and like kind of overcome those fears?
I think more than anything, and it's funny you bring this up because I actually just made a TikTok the other day about imagination and how creativity isn't exclusive to art or music or that type the like blanket statement of what creativity brings up for people, that kind of like stereotype of what being creative means or looks like, and how imagination is universal, creativity is universal. You don't have to feel like, oh, I'm not creative because I don't know how to draw. Everything we see came from creativity in one way or another. Left brain or right brain, one skill to another. Everything stems from creativity, and creativity stems from imagination. And I think at the crux of imagination is intuition. Um, and that's something that honestly, astrology has really helped me stay very centered and grounded in, because I feel like when I'm really checking in with what aspects are at play and what energies are moving in different ways, it kind of validates my own intuition in kind of an outside way to my own inside feelings. And I think what I would say to anyone who doesn't know how to maybe express themselves or be creative, but they want to, is to really just get in touch with your intuition, because that to me is like the epicenter of everything. Your gut knows what it wants, your gut knows what it feels, and everything is energy. So if you're feeling a type of energetic emotion or reaction or response to something, like that is real. It is true, capital T, true. And I think all we have to do is really exercise trust in that. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. So I'm excited to be talking about that right now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's like something that wants to express. I think that's what astrology kind of points to is like there's maybe a soul essence or a gift or a karma. It's something that wants to be expressed. And it may be through an art form, maybe in many different ways, but I, I listen to like your music and I hear there's like something it's very from your soul and your heart and like that's coming through in what you're doing. And this could look so different for everybody, but I think that's part of what astrology points us towards is like, what is that thing, the capital T truth within ourselves that like needs to come out and like, how does it want to express? And I'm curious if there's like something in astrology for you that's like helped you connect to that truth or something you read or you saw that's like super clarifying or validating for you.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there's so much
Mhm.
that I'm feeling that way about, especially going into 2026, because there's so many big shifts happening this year. And also, I'm finishing my Saturn return next month, and I'm so happy and excited about it. I'm very excited for Aries energy. I'm like done with Pisces. But at the same time, kind of being on the tail end of my own Saturn return, I'm able to look at these past couple years with such reverence for when my Saturn return really began to now, and how even in the middle of it, I wasn't consciously aware of it or wasn't actively thinking about, I'm in the middle of my Saturn return right now. And yet I so was like emotionally, mentally, energetically, I really was in the thick of it. And it kind of like dragged me into the mud. And then in the middle of the mud, I like found a way out and it pulled me out at the same time. So that's been honestly a really big one that only upon reflection I've been able to more deeply understand. But also it's really fascinating how all these different forms of astrology and understanding are kind of like interweaving together this year with all the different transits and shifts that are happening and will be happening. I'm also like in numerology, I'm finishing out my personal year 9 and then entering my year 1 as it's a year 1. And that's really exciting to me and has made a lot of sense in terms of this kind of more stagnant energy I feel like I've been sitting in, because when you're closing things out, you are not supposed to be moving on to the next thing right away. You're supposed to like sit with that ending. So that's been really exciting knowing that like we are in a year 1 already, and then I'm moving into my own year 1 in August. Um, and that mixed with all of these like outer planets kind of shifting energy in a way that is far more active. Because I've definitely been under the spell of more internal emotional worlds, more personal, a more personal space that I've been living in. And I'm already beginning to feel that urge to like come out and have more of that fiery energy. Um, and it's just exciting to me. I'm also very excited for Jupiter to enter Leo. I'm looking forward to that transit.
Yeah, and then the Vedic, the timing is a little different on some things, but certain things are all the same. Like Saturn return is,
Mm-hmm.
around age 30 for everybody always. And a lot of things like the numerology, the same, 2026 is a 1 year. So it's kind of easy to translate some things, but some things are a little bit different for my
Yeah.
listeners. Yeah.
That's what I'm excited to hear from you coming from a different background than me, what some of those things are on your end.
Yeah. Well, like the big thing in Vedic astrology that's different is the nakshatras. This is the lunar mansions. So this is like a smaller division based on the moon instead of just like the 12 zodiac signs.
Hmm.
So that's definitely something like to dive into, like beyond the scope of today, but like that I think you'll get a ton of value out of learning your moon nakshatra and your rising nakshatra. But like well, I always say, like, if people are into Western astrology and it resonates and it helps you, like, just use it and like keep using it. And if you want to explore more than the Vedic, it's like kind of like a lot of overlap, but the nakshatras are the big difference. And then the dashas are super interesting. And like that's the big time period you're going through. And it's like several years. So again, it's
Interesting.
kind of more than the scope of today, but there's lots of
Yeah.
cool stuff to go into there.
Well, I appreciate that because I'm someone who always says like if you feel like something is a valuable resource, then use it. Everyone connects to things differently and all of it's kind of equally valid as long as it's actually resonating to you.
Yeah.
I'm just such a I just love learning stuff.
Yeah.
So I like this is inspiring me to go learn in a different vein than I have been, and that's exciting to me.
Totally. Yeah. So without pulling out your birth chart for everybody right now, we'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
But I am curious of like, what is something that you're currently like, maybe a project or a lyric or something you're currently working on and that you'd want to kind of share, maybe about your creative process or like how this all this intuitive work that you do is kind of tying in with it
Yeah.
and what's kind of alive for you now into this 1 year, into the Saturn return ending and the excitement?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm already writing a lot more, and I'm very curious what I'm writing now is going to accumulate in terms of a larger project or an album. Because my focus has kind of I wouldn't say shifted rather than like it's deepened into some of these things that I've been learning about and thinking about and reading about and all of those things. Um, I have really been focused on kind of like the science of spirituality and blending spiritual practices with quantum physics and and psychology. And I think the juxtaposition and yet the like commonality between those things have this like really beautiful bridge between them. And so I've been inspired by nature as well as these like more ethereal and abstract concepts and like blending these themes together in terms of kind of just like more more existential than I've been writing before. Um, it's a little bit less grounded in what we view as reality. And I think that's actually been very creatively fulfilling for me because kind of what we were talking about before about imagination is like, I feel like broadening these themes and broadening my relationship to these themes has actually made me feel more imaginative and more in tune with my own imagination. And as someone who has always been a little bit, um, I haven't been the most attracted to hyper literal storytelling or hyper literal lyrics. Um, I'm not really interested in like listening to someone's diary entry per se. that's not really how I feel like I relate to people. I think I relate to people on a more energetic plane, which inherently is more abstract and perhaps more poetic. And so I've been leaning way more into that. And yeah, I've been like marinating on how I can kind of blend these different ideas from all these different points that have really interested in me. This like blend, this commonality, this common point, this epicenter of all of them. So that's like a really weird roundabout esoteric way of answering your question. But yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's a lot of what artists do and music and creation is like bringing together different things to create something new. And I'm curious if there's like a particular song or line or something from one of your existing songs that maybe that's really, I don't know, that feels resonant and relevant to share now of like the themes we're talking about today, or that maybe sharing a little bit about your process with that, or, so somebody could now go listen to that song and maybe have like a different perspective of it or something like that.
Yeah. I think probably the first song on my album, Internal Rituals, it's called Stepping Through, has so many lyrical moments that when I was writing them, I actually don't think I fully understood the breadth that they have for me now. Um, I mean, even just the am I really who I thought that I would be? Am I really who you thought that I would be? Is such a I was asking this question kind of, I think, very sincerely and earnestly when I wrote it. And now I think when I perform that song, I'm asking that question as a means of, I know the answer. I don't know if I knew the answer when I posed that question when I wrote it. And now I do. And the answer is very obviously no. No, I wasn't who I thought I would be. And I'm not who a lot of people thought that I was. And that's the exciting thing. And it's so cool how you can create something based off of an experience and an emotion in the moment. And then it takes on a whole other life as time passes and you're able to reflect more deeply on it. Because to me, that song really represents the entirety of the album and really states the thesis of, okay, I'm crossing this threshold into this unknown with my identity. And I have no idea what's on the other side, but all I know is I can't stay here anymore. And I feel like I really relate to that song continuously, but in different ways. And I feel like I have different access points to that song, um, as I continue to just learn about myself and the world around me, because those questions will always be valid to ask. Um, because we are always changing, I would hope. And I've just found myself continuously changing and growing and learning. And when I return to that song with all of the growth and new knowledge and new experiences, I'm looking at it at a different angle. I'm listening to it with new ears and I'm performing it with new everything. So yeah, that's what I would say. Stepping through is a good one, I think.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about once you've like finished a recording and it's kind of this is going to be the same now forever in a way, but you're going to
Mhm.
change and like your relationship with it will change. You'll hear different things. For any recording, any movie, any music, it's like that thing now stays the same, but you change and your relationship to it changes and how you experience it changes.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
think that's also like so applicable to astrology as well, you know? Like we are relating to these same characters, these
Yeah.
same planets, these same energies, so to speak. but our relationship to them and their relationship to us changes throughout time. And I just think that's very, very cool.
Yeah, and the Saturn return is a big one of like, is that kind of that saying that like the first 30 years you kind of make your habits, and the next 30 years your habits make you. With this Saturn return energy, it's like you kind of find your foundation, your structures, your limits, and then now they're all kind of tested in the Saturn return, and to learn a lot about yourself and grow up in a way for everybody. And so I'm curious, like, what are maybe some of the gifts or lessons you've received in your Saturn return, or towards the end of it now?
Yeah, big ones. I'm so grateful for everything I've learned in the last year and a half, 2 years. I think the number one thing has probably been my ability to trust myself above all else in order to release. I think I've let go of a lot of these wounds around control and fear of the unknown as it relates to control. And by letting those things go, it's really freed me up to just surrender and not just trust myself, but just trust my path and trust my greater knowing and understanding. I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit of what we're actually capable of knowing. And I think the more that I lean into like, what if I actually just trust that I know, even if I don't know right away? Because that usually gives you the answer. And I've also like trusting my own intuition, not second guessing things. It's made me a much better decision maker, even though I've always been very decisive throughout my life. I feel like my ability to decide has always combated my want to please and make sure that everyone's happy and good. And I feel like I've really rid myself of that people pleasing wound and have gotten a lot better at just staying true to this is my gut reaction, this is my intuition, this is the decision that I'm making and I stand by. And whatever doubt that I have is not, I can't mistake that for intuition. Doubt is not your intuition once you've made that decision that feels aligned. So that's something that I've really learned in a huge way that has made my life significantly, not just better, but I think just with more ease. There's more ease
Yeah.
in my life because of those lessons.
That's a big one too when we talk about things like astrology and intuition is, and then like personal life choices. Sometimes people struggle with like, how do I know if it's really my intuition or if I'm overthinking it or if it's coming from fear? I
Mhm.
think in creative work, there's a lot of that needing to kind of hone that frequency and that connection to your intuition. So in some ways, it might be, I don't know, more of a developed relationship. But I'm curious what you might say is like how you know if it's distinguishing between ego, fear, worry, or it's really intuition and it's like the guidance.
I mean, I usually abide by something that I say all the time, which is the first, not thought, but the first feeling is usually the feeling. And that is like the North Star. That's where your compass is pointing you towards. Um, Now, I know the difference between when it's the first feeling and when it's the first thought. And sometimes our first thought is not the correct one, and it's actually the second thought that matters. But I think what has really, really helped me discern between those two things is like what happens when I really just sit in stillness. Like, what happens when there is no noise? What happens when I am just alone and still and quiet. What comes up? Because when you actually give yourself the space to let it come out, it will be loud and clear. All you have to do is learn how to listen, I think. And understanding the difference between your own, I don't know, to me, a feeling or your gut or your intuition comes from this like deep inside place, whereas sometimes thoughts can be a little bit more from this outside place. And the inside place is what really carries the truth and alignment and more deep understanding. Um, because you can't really like think your way through how you feel, like a like gut response and a gut reaction. I think that that is just like more powerful and perhaps more. I just keep on having the thought that it's louder. And I think perhaps people use their thoughts to try to be louder than that, but I don't think they ever will. Yeah.
I had this experience when I was early on in making music. Like none of my friends would sing, so I would, okay, I'll sing. And I was like very shy and reserved, and I thought maybe I was okay, but then like I realized how bad I was, and like somebody criticized me, and like I felt really ashamed and all this. But through that, I learned that I was kind of singing from like not from my power, not from this like this place I think you're talking about in a way. It's like
Mhm.
intuition, it's like deep in your essence. I was more like maybe singing to try to impress somebody or try to perform a certain way or not
Mm.
really from my core, not from my diaphragm. And then when I touched into that power, like that's when I was able to improve my singing a lot and my expression and my emotion coming through, but from that like deeper place. And it's like that, I think, is like what I'm thinking when you're sharing this is like, I imagine as a singer too, you also need to kind of connect to that deeper emotional place, deeper truth, embodiment from like a core rather than from maybe something external or superficial.
Totally. I mean, I always say living life from the inside out will always give you more than the outside in because the inside out is actually rooted in something. And I kind of use the metaphor that you can't like paint the walls and put up paintings and wall decor on a house that is being redone with a bad foundation. Like you have to redo the foundation before you get to those more external things when you're rebuilding a house. And that foundation, I think that core, what you're talking about, really is like the giver of all things. If you actually align yourself with it and listen to it and let it guide you in terms of the why. Like when your purpose comes from the inside, anything that happens on the outside kind of doesn't hold a candle. But naturally, if your why and your purpose is coming from the outside, a gust of wind blows by, it's probably going to blow it over because it's not rooted in anything really substantial and withstanding.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, what astrology points us towards, is like aligning more with that, connecting more to that truth, that essence. And as we start to finish up here, I'm just curious if there's any like last things you want to share about your experience with astrology or like what you found really helpful or any words of advice for anybody might be also wanting to integrate astrology more into their life or their creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of the big things that have really helped me have been just like continuous check-ins with myself and then what's happening. Like when I look at the planets and then I also check in with myself more frequently, I mean, astrology is just there as a resource as we've been talking about. And if you are kind of questioning where you're at, why not just do that little check-in, see what's going on and how it's affecting you, to not only validate how you're feeling sometimes, which is sometimes all you need in order to be like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
But also to like look at those energies at play and go, okay, how can I utilize these? How can I actually benefit from these aspects or whatever it is? And also, this is such a like silly kind of superficial one, but you know those people on TikTok who are like, well, Capricorn, this is how this is affecting you, and blah, blah, blah. And they like go into whatever, and they say that it's affecting this house. It's like, it probably isn't because they aren't looking at your birth chart. And so I think like actually understanding the nuance and specificity of astrology and how personalized it is. Whenever I see those videos, I just like scroll past them because it's not really applicable to me. I would rather take the time to look at my own chart and look at the transits myself to see what's going on and have my own interpretation than be lazy and listen to someone tell me something that's probably not accurate for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it can be so deep and vast to learn astrology. It's like such a big language,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, it's super empowering. And once you know like what to look for and what's going on in your chart, like that's when it really comes alive. And it's like millions of variables and charts. So, these more broad things, like what I do on the podcast, is more broad. So we can only speak to the collective energy. So when you really want to get more specific, yeah, you got to look at your chart, and that's awesome that you do that.
Yeah. It's helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this time, Eleri. It's been really nice talking with you today.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an immense pleasure.
So again, everyone, you can look her up on Spotify and the streaming platforms. Is there anywhere else people should look for you?
I am everywhere that people listen to music. So wherever you listen to music, I'm there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Eleri.
Thank you.
I'm stepping through the bend, trying to catch myself. I lean to the left again, but maybe this is where I fall. Gravity is the only thing that gets me at all. I'm scared of my fragility. If I hit the ground, what will become of me? All the broken pieces put together, making something unfamiliar. Am I really who I thought that I would be? Stepping through myself, but was it really me or just a concept for someone else? Now I'm on the other side, all the expectations broken from me crossing the line. It's not about approval, no, not taking any questions. Something that you're losing, 'cause something died. Am I really who you thought that I would be? stepping through the bend. Now I'm stepping through the dead. Now I'm stepping through myself. Now I'm stepping through